Shabbat Shalom. About a decade or so ago, Snickers released a wonderful ad campaign. It was a commercial starring Joe Pesci, who, if we're familiar with Joe Pesci, we know he is great at showing his emotions, especially anger. In this commercial, they are at a party with a bunch of young adults. Joe Pesci is standing next to a young guy, and they're talking to a couple of young women. And Joe Pesci starts to get angry. And his friend says, "Let's walk away." They go into the kitchen, and he tells Joe Pesci, "You get a little angry when you're hungry. Here, have a Snickers." He has a Snickers, and he returns to his normal, non-Joe Pesci self. From this, we get the tagline from Snickers, "You're not you when you're hungry." And this is true. When we are hungry, we might get a little hangry, and we aren't thinking straight. In this week's Parashat Chukat, that's exactly what happens to the Israelites. Following Miriam's death, the Israelites immediately complain about the lack of water, that there's no good food to eat. And Moses and Aaron, who just lost their sister, are unable to grieve in that moment. They fall on their faces, they ask God for advice. God tells Moses to take your staff and to speak to the rock, and the water will come rushing out, quenching the thirst of all of the Israelites. Moses takes his staff, but rather than speaking to the rock, he strikes it, and he tells the Israelites, "Listen up, you rebels, shall we get water from this rock for you?" Moses didn't listen to God in that moment. Moses calls the Israelites rebels, tells them that we are the ones that are going to get water from the rock, not God. And if we are familiar with this moment in the Torah, this is one of the main reasons why Moses is unable to go into the promised land, the land of Israel. And this is just one moment where Moses gets very angry at the people. About 10 chapters later in the book of Numbers, Moses gets angry once again. It's not looking so great for Moses. He lets his anger get the best of him. In the Talmud, we learn from one of our great rabbis, Reish Lakish. He says that any person who becomes angry, if they are a Torah scholar, their wisdom departs from them. And if they are a prophet, their prophecy departs from them. In this moment in Parashat Chukat, when Moses calls the Israelites rebels and he strikes the rock, he lets his anger win. In that moment, his wisdom, his prophecy departed from him, and he was not thinking straight, which had dire consequences for him and the Israelite community. They couldn't see him as that strong leader, that humble leader that led them out of Egypt on their way into the promised land. His anger controlled him in that moment, just like it controlled Joe Pesci in the Snickers commercial. We can learn from this moment on how we should respond to our own anger. And when we are feeling anger, when we feel that heat bubbling up inside, to learn to walk away, to take 10 deep breaths, to control our heart rate, our emotions, to calm down before we rush into any action. Moses was unable to do that in this moment. Because of that, he was unable to go into the land of Israel. This Shabbat, I want to invite us to learn how to control our anger, to learn when we should just walk away from a conversation, when we should learn to close a door, to take deep breaths, to go for a walk, until we cool down. and then we can make a wise decision after we let our anger disappear. May this Shabbat be a Shabbat of peace, a Shabbat of comfort, a Shabbat of love. I want to wish all of you a Shabbat Shalom.